Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon. This panel is dedicated to Mavash Sabet, an Iranian Baha'i woman who was arrested and convicted in July 2022 for tending to the basic pastoral needs of Iranian Baha'is. She is detained in Evin prison and suffering from severe health issues. Religious persecution in Iran has caused many religious minorities, including the Baha'i, to have to flee their homelands and seek refuge in nearby areas, including Eurasia.
Distinguished guests, my name is Wade Cusack. I'm a founder and CEO for US-based NGO called Love Your Neighbor Community, or LINC, L-Y-N-C. And I will be moderating this panel. And at the beginning, I will explain what's going on here, who is on the panel, and why we decided to call this panel for today's discussion. But let me start with introduction. So our Uzbek colleagues reported some health issues, and it's unaware if they will be able to make it or not, but we will start regardless. So I would like to introduce from my left to further, and first from my left is the Vice Minister of Information of Kazakhstan, His Excellency Kanat Iskakov. Representative from Moldova, Reverend Valeriu Ghilechi, a pastor, politician, and longtime defender of religious freedom. He is former Deputy Speaker of the Moldovan Parliament. He served as the author and rapporteur for 2K Council of Europe reports, one addressing discrimination against Christians and other affirming parents' rights to educate their children according to their religious or philosophical convictions. He currently serves as a president of the European Christian Political Movement in the European Parliament, Mr. Valeriu Ghilechi. And next, our panelist is chair for committee for Agency of Religious Affairs of Georgia, of the Republic of Georgia, His Excellency Zaza Vashakmadze. If our Uzbek colleague will appear, so I'll introduce him later, but we will start regardless. The fact that I am moderating this panel with our distinguished participants, it's not random. All of these countries and all of these people are partners of our organization. We create strategy to support and advance religious freedom, and we together implement these strategies in all these countries that are currently present here. We engaged in Uzbekistan for more than 20 years already. For more than 12 years, we work in Kazakhstan. In 2003, we started working in Georgia, and we are currently in creating relationships with government, civil societies, and religious communities in Moldova for the same purpose, to advance religious freedom and social cohesion. For doing so, we discussed what we can do together at the very beginning. We approached all the governments represented here with a question: what do you think we can do together to advance religious freedom, to strengthen religious freedom, social cohesion in your countries? And by their choice and by their invitation, we created these partnerships. Our main product, our main project based on a framework we called CCRL, or Cross-Cultural Religious Literacy. Cross-cultural religious literacy provides opportunity for people to study their own faith or convictions, the religions of others, the way the others understand themselves, and what different religious communities and sectors of the societies can do together for the common good. And this panel is very well, is a continuation of the previous panel, when we've heard from a former Prime Minister of Slovakia the idea of educating politicians and not too afraid of religion. I think it's important for all the countries we are working with, especially considering that all these countries emerged from the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union was the enemy of all the religions. We were taught in schools. I was born in Belarus and in 1972. So I studied in school in Soviet Union, and I remember lessons of atheism. Each week we were taught that religion is opioid for masses. It exists to manipulate people. And with this understanding and approach, many government employees and officials are still understand religion. So it's just one of the challenges, but from my point of view, it's one of the main challenges that hindering religious freedom development in the former Soviet space. But thankfully for these partnerships we developed in different countries, we together can work on those issues. Today for this panel, I prepared 4 segments of questions. And these 4 segments supposed to shed some light and provide some understanding on current stance of development of religious freedom in those 4 different countries. We invited 2 countries with Muslim majority. We invited 2 countries with Christian majorities. We invited country from Far East, Kazakhstan. We invited Western countries, central country, Georgia, and the most Western country that emerged out of Soviet Union is Moldova. So comparing these factors that influence development of religious freedom will help us better understand that this huge territory and many countries that exist and trying to find their way in religious freedom and social cohesion. So I will be asking each panelist a question, and it's going to be 3 minutes for each panelist to respond for this question. Please be mindful of this time and not exceed these 3 minutes because we have more people and maybe our Uzbek colleagues will join us too. So my first question is, from your observation, from your experience, what kind of influence on development of religious freedom and social cohesion was influenced by the historical background? By historical background, I mean being part of the Soviet Union, and before that was colonized by Russian Empire. And we probably will go from Far East to the Western part, and Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Vice Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. First of all, I would like to my sincere gratitude, and I'm really appreciated to be participate these high-level events. And this is a big opportunity for me and my team to discuss the current issues in the religion affairs in the world and in my country. If answer your questions, we have 2 options. First of all, is very shortly, yes, influent, but distant guests. After destroyed the Soviet Union, over past 35 years. In the 35 years in Kazakhstan, has grown up new generation. It's new generation, young people whose respect religion freedoms and freedom of conscience. And government supported and will support it then. Today, as a result, Kazakhstan has become a symbol of religious tolerance in the region. You know, in the Soviet Union, the priority ideology is atheism. but not for Kazakh people. Even Soviet Union, even Soviet era. In conclusion, it can be said that after gaining independence, a new culture of tolerance and interethnic harmony begin to take shape. This led to development of Kazakhstan model, Kazakh model of peaceful coexistence among religions, the ONUF proudly observed today. Thanks to our rich history, we have learning a very important lesson. Only one point for me and for membership of government. Really, activity and sustainable development is possible only through recognize over every individual's right to freedom of conscience and fostering genuine interfaith, interreligious dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being in our framework, time framework. So, Mr. Valerio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it's also a joy and an honor for me to be here, to be at this international conference. I know that in the afternoon it's a bit difficult to be awake. We have a proverb in Moldova that says, every simple man has a right to have a nap after lunch. So if you plan to have a nap, just don't forget to say a prayer, since we are religious people here. So this will be important, not to go to sleep without saying a prayer. Well, if I would resume the impact of the USSR to religious freedom in my own country, I think this will be one word: control. The Soviets, they tried to control everything. I think it's a universal principle. If you cannot stop it, you take control of it. So this is what they tried to do during the Soviet time. I saw it in my personal life. I was also born in Moldova at the time that Moldova was part of the USSR. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union, shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I decided to run for parliament elections. So one of the main reasons that motivated me to run for parliament was religious freedom. In the time of Soviet Union, I was humiliated, marginalized for my Christian faith, so I wanted to prove that Christians, they are not like second-class citizens in a society. It was kind of like a driving force for me. And during my first years of being in parliament and later on, the fight for fundamental freedoms, and in particular for religious freedom, was a priority. As of today, the situation in Moldova is much different. We are on our path to become a member of the European Union, so this, of course, puts, how to say, a pressure on one hand. On the other hand, there is a desire to be like most Western European countries. But it's not an easy process. The temptation to control, it's still there. So you can see, we recently had parliament elections in Moldova, and again, you could feel that temptation. And by the way, yesterday, in Moldova, the majority of people are Orthodox Christians. And not half, I probably would say 2/3 of Orthodox Christians, they are affiliated to the Russian Orthodox Church, and 1/3 of the Romanian Orthodox Church. Yesterday there was just a press release from the Orthodox Church that is close to the Russian Orthodox Church, saying that the Orthodox Church in Moldova is free and autonomous and independent, which tells you again that there is that struggle that we are faced in Moldova until today. Thank you.
მე ქართულად ვისაუბრებ. საქართველოს მურთულესი საბჭოთა პერიოდი გამოიარა. 1968 წლის პრაღის გაზაფხულის მომსწრე ქვეყნისთვის ეს ილოდ აღსაქმელია. საბჭოთა საქართველოში 21-91 წლებში წითელი ტერორის პერიოდში ხდებოდა სასულიერო პირებისა და მრევლის რელიგიური მოტივებით დევნა. რის შედეგადაც ათასობით სასულიერო პირი უდანაშაულოდ
Just want to make, when you turn on your microphone, this microphone will be off and vice versa.
Georgia endured an extremely difficult Soviet period, a reality well understood in a country that witnessed the events of the 1968 Prague Spring. Between 1921 and 1991, during the era of Red Terror, clergy and believers in Soviet Georgia were persecuted on religious grounds. Thousands of innocent clergy were executed, imprisoned, or exiled to concentration camps.
ეს გზა ყველა საბჭოთა რესპუბლიკამ განვლო, თუმცა ჩვენთან ყველაფერი გაცილებით ადრე მეფის რუსეთიდან დაიწყო, როცა ოკუპირებული საქართველოს ტერიტორიაზე გრძალავდნენ ქართულ ენას, გაუქმეს საქართველოს ეკლესიის ავტოკეფალია, გადაღებეს უძველესი ქართული ტაძრები, რუსეთში გაიტანეს საეკლესიო ქონება. ანუ დაახლოებით ისე იქცეოდნენ, როგორც დღეს 21 საუკუნეში იქცევა რუსეთი საქართველოს ოკუპირებულ ტერიტორიებზე, აფხაზეთსა და ცხინვალში. სწორედ ოკუპირებულ ტერიტორიაზე არსებული უმძიმესი ვითარებაა დღეს ჩვენი ქვეყნის მთავარი პრობლემას და გამოწვევაც.
All Soviet republics suffered this fate, but in Georgia, religious oppressions began even earlier during the Russian Empire. When the Georgian language was banned in the occupied territories of Georgia, the autocephaly of the Georgian Orthodox Church was abolished. Ancient Georgian churches were whitewashed with lime, and ecclesiastical treasures were taken to Russia. In many ways, this mirrors what Russia is doing today in the 21st century in the occupied regions of Georgia, Abkhazia, and the Tkhinvali region. The grave situation in the occupied territories remains one of our country's central problems and challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The second set of questions, and please consider your own questions to the panelists, because we will have a time for question and answers at the end. But the next question I would like to ask about national security and religious freedom. And please elaborate how your country navigate through the intersection of national security and religious freedom, and how national security issues influence, if any, the religious freedom in your country. Mr. Vice Minister.
Thank you. It's very good questions, difficult, but for me and my government, religious freedom and security is not opposite points. It's not opposite point. So I mean, it's not fight between religious freedom or national security. Today is Kazakhstan, is religious situation is my country is stable and predictable. In modern Kazakhstan today, issues of religious freedom are closely linked to ensuring national security. The state seeks to maintain a balance between protecting citizens' rights to freedom of conscience and preventing extremism and radicalization. But we have a decision for this point. For me and for my government, in light to the above, an important task remains to strengthen interfaith dialogue and promotion from religious literacy in society. Religion literacy in society is very important activity for me and for my ministry. From religious literacy, and thank you, Wade, for your activity, for your organization. We decision the problem when our citizens maybe we fight about we fight religion because it's national security. We stop at them because it's not really it's not decision for this make. So first of all, I'm repeat again this religious literacy and working between all religious organizations. For example, 20 years ago in my country was around 700 religious associations 20 years ago. Now, 25 years, more 2,000 religious organizations, more 2,000. And 18.5 religious freedom. And I mean, then we're working all religious association, all. And from collaborate activities and for religious literacy and other activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Minister.
Well, the biggest threat to the national security in Moldova today is the Russian invasion into Ukraine. We're aware that as long as Ukraine resists, Moldova is safe. Church is separated from the state, but we all know that believers, they are citizens and they do vote. So as I mentioned, in the last year we had presidential elections, this year we had parliament elections. And it's not easy sometimes to, when you have a certain affiliation, and not to blame the Orthodox Church of Moldova that is affiliated with the Russian Orthodox Church, but still there is an influence. And for our government, it was a challenge how to address this influence, how to make sure that the position of the church will not affect our national security. That's why I just mentioned about the statement that was made by the Russian Orthodox Synod yesterday, which I believe is important. They made it clear that, at least in their statement, they affirmed that the Russian Orthodox Church in Moldova is autonomous and independent. And they do not plan in any way to interfere with the decisions of the government, and in our case, to join the European Union. So there is this geopolitical tension because we are at the crossroad in Moldova, and as most of you probably know, Moldova and Ukraine are candidates for the EU accession. And Marta Kos, who is the Commissioner for the Enlargement, was recently in Moldova. And what I liked about her, I mean, one of her statements was that she mentioned that basically church is the largest part of the civil society. So there is an awareness that believers, they play an important role in the decisions that are made in the country.
Thank you very much.
რელიგიური თავისუფლება საქართველოში ფუნდამენტური უფასეულობაა, რომელმაც ერთისხრივ საშუალება მისცა ჩვენი ქვეყნის სხვადასხვა ეთნიკურ და რელიგიური მოსახლეობას სამშობლოდ აღიქვა საქართველო, მეორესხრივ უზრუნველყო სწორედ ამ ქვეყანაში მათი დამოუკიდებელი განვითარება და უნიკალური იდენტობის გაძლიერება ქართულ ერთან ასიმილაციის გარეშე.
Freedom of religion is a fundamental value in Georgia, one that has enabled people of diverse ethnic and religious backgrounds to regard Georgia as their homeland, and at the same time has ensured their independent development and preservation of their unique identity without assimilation.
11 წლის წინ რელიგიის სააგენტოსთან შექმნილი რელიგიის საკითხთა სახელმწიფო სააგენტოს თავისუფლების ქვეყნის ხელისუფლების დამოუკიდებულების აშკარა გამოხატულებაა, რადგან სახელმწიფო თავადაა რელიგიის თავისუფლების მთავარი გარანტორი.
The State Agency for Religious Issues, established 11 years ago, is a clear expression of the Georgian government's commitment to religious freedom. The state is the primary guarantor of this freedom.
საზოგადოებაში დისკრიმინაციის, შუღლისა და შეუწყნარებლობის ნეგატიური სტერეოტიპების შემცირებას უწყობს ხელს რელიგიის საკეთოსან თავისუფალი ფორმატის ფუნქციონირება ინტერრელიგიური სათათბიროს სახით, რომელშიც მონაწილეობს საქართველოში არსებული თითქმის ყველა რელიგიური გაერთიანება.
One of the key mechanisms that helps reduce discriminatory or intolerant stereotypes in society is the Interreligious Council operating under the agency, which includes nearly all religious organizations present in Georgia.
სახელმწიფოს და რელიგიას შორის ურთიერთობა თანამედროვე მსოფლიოს ერთ-ერთი უმნიშვნელოვანესი მსოფლმხედველობრივი გამოწვევაა. ამ კონტექსტში სერიოზული პრობლემების შექმნა რადიკალურმა სეკულარიზმმა. დღეს არსებული მიდგომა ორგვარია. პირველი, სახელმწიფო და რელიგიის სრული გამიჯვნა ერთმანეთისგან, მეორე, თანამშრომლობა სახელმწიფო და რელიგიას შორის. ჩვენ საკუთარი გამოცდილებიდან გამომდინარე მიგვაჩნია, რომ საჭიროა ოქროს შუალედის დაცვა, რათა არ დაირღვეს არც ერთი მათგანის ავტონომიურობა.
Relations between the state and religion represent one of the most important philosophical challenges in the modern world. In this context, radical secularism has created serious problems. Today, two main approaches exist: complete separation of the state and religion, and cooperation between the state and religion. Based on our own experience, we believe that the golden mean must be maintained so that neither side autonomy is compromised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From our experience working in the post-Soviet space, one of the conclusions during the research that has been done for many years, we started to see the religious landscape in general after a Soviet Union influence for 70 years. Religion was eradicated, a religious community was suppressed, religious theology and religious thoughts were punishable. So there were no development and only destruction. And when Soviet Union collapsed to this basically completely empty space, there were a lot of influence from outside of the borders. And that influence was not always a positive influence. It was a lot of negative influence, but in those countries, in those societies, there were no religious mechanisms to resist the negative influence from abroad, which in many cases, and we can see the 1990s in the former Soviet Union, the rise of radicalization, a lot of terrorist attacks, a lot of destructive movements were created. So the situation is still complicated, but I'm very much glad to see that it's improving. And it's not only improving in terms of security. I see that many countries are keeping a balance between national security and religious freedom. And we encourage the former Soviet countries to go this way, to constantly think about balancing that, not sacrifice religious freedom in terms of better security, but to balance them and to see how those two things can work together. We have projects and educational projects for law enforcement to do so. With Kazakhstan, only last year we provided extensive certified training for government officials involved in religious affairs with help from the Ministry of Information. This year, we were trained law enforcement on cross-cultural religious literacy and religion and the rule of law. And currently, we negotiate with the General Prosecutor's Office of Kazakhstan to do our training permanently at the Law Enforcement Academy of Kazakhstan, to train law enforcement and to explain them that religion not necessarily a part of the problem. Religion can be part of the solution and on the perspectives on that. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm going to the third question of our today's discussion, and the third question related to geopolitical influence. I think it's also important. All these four countries, as I explained geographically, Kazakhstan from the far east for this region, Georgia is in the middle, with a border with Iran, Russia, Turkey, Moldova, border with Ukraine, and the Far West country. And all these countries have their different geopolitical situation. Kazakhstan, for example, has the largest land border in the world with Russia, over 7,000 kilometers, right? Am I right?
Yes, after, yeah, the first. After, yes, the first.
Over
Over 700 kilometers.
7,000.
7,000 kilometers. Sorry.
And a very big border with China, two regional giants. And my question is, do you feel any geopolitical, let me put it diplomatically, influence because of your country position on the globe?
Thank you. Geopolitical position, the influence or impact for all issues, economic, political, religious. So, of course, but as you know, and Kazakhstan have had unique geopolitical position between Europe and Asia, and after collapse Soviet Union, Kazakhstan found itself at the central Eurasia, bordering north and Russian, the east China, and Central Asia. So, therefore, Kazakhstan pursue a multi-vector foreign policy and strive to serve a platform for interreligious and intercultural dialogue. There's only one option for us and for my government. And today, the geopolitical context makes religious tolerance and freedom of conscience not only internal priority in our government, but also an element of foreign policy aimed at the strength regional and stability and trust. So, in conclusion, I said again, geopolitical position impact for the religion, policy, and issues, but we need to support and protect and development religion freedom and human right freedom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moldova is also situated kind of like in crossroads, as Mr. Cusack mentioned. We are the most western country of the former Soviet Union. And that influence, the biggest influence today is coming from the West, from the European Union, which on the one hand is an advantage. It's an advantage because Western democracy has many good things. On the other hand, there are some challenges. What we see in Western Europe is a kind of like aggressive secularism, and not everyone accepts this kind of life or this kind of values. Now I will say a few words in my capacity as president of a European party. In the European Parliament today, there are 12 parties. I have the honor to be the president of one of them. It's the smallest party in the European Parliament, European Christian Political Party, but it's the only Christian party in the European Parliament. So as of today, we don't have yet a religious freedom envoy. For the last mandate, it took probably almost 3 years to appoint a religious freedom envoy. And we always remind the Commission and the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, that it's very important to appoint a religious freedom envoy. And I think it would be good to have more dignitaries from the European Parliament at such conference, so they will be aware that religious freedom is important, both for the East and the West. So as of today, as I said, there are some advantages, but there are also some challenges when it comes to religious freedom.
Thank you.
მსოფლიოს ერთ-ერთი უძველესი ქრისტიანული სახელმწიფო საქართველო თავისი გეოგრაფიული მდებარეობიდან გამომდინარე არაერთი კულტურისა და რელიგიის მასპინძელია. ამის მიუხედავად ეთნიკური თუ რელიგიური ტოლერანტობა არის ის ფასეულობა, რომლითაც დღემდე ვამაყობთ. მაგალითად, საქართველოში 26 საუკუნეა ცხოვრობენ ებრაელები და ამ ხნის მანძილზე არ ყოფილა ანტისემიტიზმის ასეთი გამოვლენა. ქართული ებრაული ურთიერთობის ტრადიციისთვის არამატერიალური კულტურული მემკვიდრეობის ძეგლის სტატუსის მინიჭების თხოვნით ჩვენ უკვე ვიმართეთ იუნესკოს. მსოფლიოში შიიტებსა და სუნიტებს შორის არსებული დაპირისპირების მიუხედავად ქართველი სუნიტები და შიიტები ერთადერთმეტში ლოცულობენ. ასევე საქართველოს ერთადერთია ერაყის გარდა, სადაც ეზიდებს აქვს სალოცავი და კულტურის ცენტრი და ასეთი მაგალითები ბევრია საქართველოში.
Georgia, one of the world's oldest Christian states, has historically hosted numerous cultures and religions due to its geographical location. Despite this diversity, ethnic and religious tolerance remains a value of which we are proud to these days. For example, Jews have lived in Georgia for 26 centuries, and throughout this time there has not been a single recorded incident of anti-Semitism. We have already submitted a request to UNESCO to grant the tradition of Georgian Jewish 26th century relation the status of intangible cultural heritage. Likewise, despite tension between Shiites and Sunnis across the world, Georgian Sunnis and Shiites pray together in the same mosque. Georgia is also the only country, apart from Iraq, where the Yazidis have a house of worship and a cultural center, and such examples are many.
საქართველოს ისტორიული ფუნქცია და მისიაც ცივილიზაციათა, რელიგიათა და კულტურათა დიალოგის რეჟიმში არსებობაა, რადგან ინტენსიური დიალოგისა და ურთიერთგაგების გარეშე ვერ უპასუხებთ ეპოქის თავარ გამოწვევას. გავხადოთ სამყარო უფრო ჰუმანური, დაცული და სამართლიანი. მადლობთ.
Georgia's historical mission has always been to serve as a place where civilizations, religions, and the cultures engage in a dialogue. Without active dialogue and mutual understanding, we cannot respond to the central challenge of our time, to make the world more humane, more secure, and more just. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yesterday, talking about geopolitical influence, yesterday Chairman Zaza represented the book that his agency published, Occupied Heritage. This book available behind this column on the table designated to the Georgians occupied by Russia territories. And 20% of Georgian territories are currently occupied by Russians, and the situation for religious communities there and religious sites is very dangerous. So you may ask Chairman Zaza for more information, or you may obtain the book that he published during the break after this panel. So the last set of questions related to legislation and implementation. Some of the former Soviet Union countries has religious law, some not. Some of they have a certain religious agencies, religious affairs agencies that oversees religious life, some not. And I just want you to answer basically elaborate the religious legislation and implementation situation in your country. Interestingly, talking about Kazakhstan, during the training for government officials, and the part of the training is the religion and the rule of law. And we usually ask participants, the Committee for Religious Affairs exists to help or to control? And we always have 50-50. Some of them will say to control, some of them say no, we exist to help. So what was your question answer?
Very shortly. Very shortly. Help, then control. The first of all, we need to help. Really, I'm gonna say our activities, my ministry aimed to further liberalization of our legislation of religious. Our main priority, top priority, is ensuring freedom of religion. We will also ensure security, truth, national security, truth, religion literacy, only religion literacy, and collaborate activity with all religious organizations who work in our country. We will protect the fundamental freedoms and rights of believers. It's our way and not other options. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have modified our legislation several times since Moldova became independent. The last time it was, the law was revised, I think it was in 2012 when I was in the parliament. The law is relatively modern. We, for example, decided to give up on having a state agency for religious affairs compared to Georgia and Kazakhstan. As I mentioned, one of the impacts from the past was control. So to eliminate control, we felt that we don't need such agency for religious affairs. But there are now there is a discussion that the law needs also to be improved because we want to join the European Union. And one of the biggest challenges today for our legislation concerning religious freedom is related to property rights. There are some conflicts between two Orthodox churches when it comes to property rights. But also, we have a problem. For example, even the building where the prime minister sits today, where the government is, this building belonged to the church in the past. Then another building that is used for state service to protect VIPs in the past belonged to the Roman Catholic Church. Baptists also do not receive all their properties that were taken. So this is one of the biggest challenges now that I foresee, how to compensate, how to find a way to give back the properties or to come with some financial compensation for the properties that were taken in the past, and those buildings belong to the church. But as I said, there is also a conflict between two Orthodox churches. What the government did, they nationalized all the churches. And after they nationalized all the church buildings, they decided to sign a lease contract with certain churches. So that is a kind of like compromise, but as of today, again, that government decision is also contested, and we will see what will happen. Otherwise, when it comes to freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, I think the law is a very good law. Thank you.
საქართველოში რელიგიის და რწმენის თავისუფლების მაღალი სტანდარტებით არის დაცული და გარანტირებული კონსტიტუციით. საჯარო სამართლის სტატუსით აღიარებულია 70-მდე რელიგიური გაერთიანება.
Freedom of religion and belief in Georgia is protected to high standards and guaranteed by the Constitution of Georgia. About 70 religious associations are recognized with a high-level status of public entity.
სოფლიოს მრავალ ქვეყანაში კიდევ ერთი პრობლემა ეჩნეს თავს. ესაა სალოცავების დაცარიელება, რელიგიისადმი ახალგაზრდების ინტერესების დაკარგვა, რაც მათ ანტირელიგიურობაზე მეტყველებს. ეს ფაქტორი კონკრეტულ ქვეყნებში მათში გაბატონებული მსხვერპლობრივი შეხედულებიდან გამომდინარე, სავარაუდოდ კიდევ უფრო გააღრმავებულ სახელმწიფო და რელიგიებს შორის უკვე არსებულ დაპირისპირებას.
At the same time, many countries face another challenge, the emptying of houses of worship and the declining interest of younger generations in religion, which reflects broader anti-religious attitudes. Depending on the dominant worldview in particular societies, this trend may further deepen existing tension between the state and the religious communities.
რელიგიის თავისუფლების დაცვის საკანონმდებლო ჩარჩოში გამოირჩევა ორი მიდგომა: ზოგადი საკანონმდებლო რეგულაციები და ეგრეთ წოდებული სპეციალური კანონი რელიგიის თავისუფლების შესახებ. პრაქტიკა გვაჩვენებს, რომ ევროპული სახელმწიფოების მსგავსად საქართველოშიც გვჭირდება სპეციალური კანონი რელიგიის თავისუფლების შესახებ.
Within the legislative framework for the protection of freedom of religion and belief, Two main approaches stand out: general legal regulations and special legislation on religious freedom. Practice shows that as in many European states, Georgia also needs a dedicated law on freedom of religion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished guests, panelists. This is a conclusion of all my questions, and now we have 10 minutes for your questions, if you have any, for our participants. Please speak from your seat.
Can you hear me? My name is Bani Dugal, and I'm with the Baha'i International Community. And I have a comment, and I also have a question. I'd like to thank Kazakhstan, and I saw that Uzbekistan was supposed to be on the panel, but I don't see the speaker. Both countries have started a dialogue with different religions and interfaith dialogue. In fact, I'm on my way from here to Tashkent for a conference on Uzbekistan being a tolerant country. So when there's political will, there is, I think, harmony, and this has been proven when there's political will to include minorities and have them part of the mainstream in society, it results in harmony. So I'd like the comments of the various speakers, and then also to the chairman from Georgia, I have a question as to the process of registration. How does religion register in your country? Thank you.
ბაჰაისთან როგორც მივხვდი ორგანიზაციაზე სამა. მე ველოდებოდი ამ კითხვას. ბატონო თარგმნი.
I was expecting this question actually.
იმიტომ რომ სწორედ აი ახლა დღესდღეობით წარმოებაში საქართველოს პირადად ჩვენთან არის შემოსული საჯარო სამართლისმცემელი პირად რეგისტრაციის შესახებ ბაჰაის საზოგადოების რელიგიურ ორგანიზაციათა დარეგისტრირების კუთხით.
Because actually we have contemporary ongoing process of registering Baha'i religious organization as a legal entity of public law.
აი წინა კვირაში ჩვენ მორმონებთან ქონდა შეხვედრა, აქ ესწრებიან წარმომადგენლები, ქონდა საუბარი და ფაქტობრივად ახლა მე შემიძლია кейსი მოგიყვანოთ მაგალითი, რომ პრაქტიკულად გადაწყვეტილია მორმონების რეგისტრაციის საკითხი და უახლოეს ერთ კვირაში მიიღებს უმაღლეს სტანდარტს საჯარო სამართლის იურიდიული პირის სტატუსს და განხილვაში არის ბაჰაის საკითხი.
As example, we met yesterday with a representative of Mormon religious organizations, which practically in Georgia has the same process ongoing. They had registering already as a public entity of private law, and they are also requesting to become a public entity of private law. And we already practically finished the study of this case, and in very soon future they will get this status, and next comes the Baha'i religious organization.
ეს ნიუანსი მინდა ერთი დავაზუსტო, ბაჰაისტები დღეს რეგისტრირებულები არიან, ეს არ ნიშნავს რომ არ არსებობენ, არიან, სტატუსი აქვთ, უბრალოდ მაღალ სტატუსით ხოვენ, high level სტატუსით ხოვენ და მაგაზია საუბარი.
Just to clarify, we already have registered Baha'i religious organization in Georgia almost like more than 10 years, but they had the same status of private law, and they are requesting higher level, which is a legal entity of public law, and this is the process.
Thank you very much. Any more questions for the panelists?
I was very interested in the comment about how the authority of religion is being expressed in your different countries with respect to the authority of the state. This is a very ancient, of course, question of who has the highest authority over the people. And I'm curious if, in terms of your interreligious conversations in your various countries, have you now invited secular humanists or secular rationalists into the interreligious conversation so that a large part of your population feels actually represented in the deep discussion of who has the highest authority, who has the real truth?
კარგი კითხვაა, ალბათ იცის აქვს ინფორმაცია საქართველოს შესახებ, ალბათ რა ამ კითხვას საინტერესოა რომ დასვა.
A very interesting question. I believe you are more or less familiar with the situation in Georgia.
გიპასუხებთ, საქართველოს პირველი საუკუნეებიდან არის ქრისტიანული სახელმწიფო, ერთ-ერთი უძველესი ქვეყანა, ჩვენი ქვეყანა.
The Georgia is one of the first Christian countries in the world.
ავტოკეფალია ჩემო ქვეყანამ მიიღო მე-5 საუკუნეში და სახელმწიფო რელიგიად გამოცხადდა ქრისტიანობა 324 წელს.
The Georgia the Christian church received autocephaly in the 4th century, and it became as a state religion in 324 year.
შესაბამისად, საქართველოში მართლმადიდებლური ეკლესია არის დომინანტი ეკლესია და რელიგია, განსხვავებით სხვა რელიგიებისაგან, მაგრამ ეს იმას ანიშნავს, რომ სხვას უფლებები არ აქვს, რა თქმა უნდა აქვს.
And the Orthodox Christian Church is the majority in my country, and it has very high respect. However, we also have practically all religious denominations in Georgia.
თქვენს კითხვაზე ბოლო პასუხი. ყველაზე დიდი ავტორიტეტი ჩემს ქვეყანაში საერო თუ სეკულარული პრინციპიდან გამომდინარე არის ორი ინსტანცია. ერთი ეს გახლავთ საქართველოს კათოლიკოს პატრიარქი, რომელსაც დაახლოებით 90% აქვს მოსახლეობის მხარდაჭერა და ავტორიტეტი და მეორე გახლავთ საქართველოს ჯარი, რომლის მხარდაჭერა და მაღალი ავტორიტეტი არის დაახლოებით 80-85%.
The final answer on your question is that in my country, the most authority has the Patriarch of Georgia, which is 90% of population supports and respects the Patriarch. And the second comes the Army of Georgia, where 90% of population supports and trusts and believes in the Army of Georgia.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Well, what I would like to say is that I don't know whether this is good or bad. It depends how you look at this. The government first doesn't take any initiative to organize round tables between different, branches or different confessions. There is no such initiative on the behalf of the government. When it comes to the religious entities themselves, there is an ongoing dialogue, but I do not recall inviting, let's say, atheists or those that are, do not believe in anything to this dialogue. It's more religious dimension dialogue. So from time to time, there are some round tables when we come together and we discuss. What we have more in Moldova, we have a kind of like bilateral dialogue. So, for example, the Baptist Union has a kind of dialogue with the Pentecostal Union or with the Roman Catholic Church and so on. So this is what we see in Moldova when it comes to interacting with one another.
When we activities, we should be, and we organize it with all groups, not only religious leaders and lawyers and citizens and psychology sciences. So I mean, interreligious dialogue should be representative and should be participate all groups, all citizens. There's no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and our time is almost up. Let me draw some conclusion of our panel, and first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, FoRB Steering Committee, and Ambassador Robert Rihak for opportunity to set up this panel discussion. It's very important and very effective when we invite countries who are not members yet. I'm not talking about Georgia. Georgia is a formal member of FoRB. I'm talking about Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Moldova, other countries of the post-Soviet space. Because by these invitations and opportunities for those countries to explain their understanding of how to protect and advance religious freedom, also hearing other reports from other places, connecting personally with experts, government officials, experienced people from all over the world, it shaped the perspective of all of us. FoRB members can hear and ask questions directly from the country representatives. The country representatives can hear the case study, connect it, and rethink their approach to religious freedom. It is very important to help those countries who emerged from the Soviet Union space. And remember, those countries are only 33 years old, all of them. They have just 33 years old, they're navigating through the very complex societal religious issues influenced by many actors in this world, which not in many cases wish them prosperity and development. So I think this gathering today is an opportunity for countries who emerged from the former Soviet space to learn, to connect, to create friendships with the rest of the world who struggle for religious freedom and looking for solutions. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity today. And I hope we will see more countries from former Soviet Union space engaged in such a interesting, effective, and important gathering as we have today. So thank you very much for your attention, for your questions, and for this invitation. Appreciate it.